Mm, Hello, my name is Dae-Hyoen Kang, and I'll be reviewing the paper called The Reward for Luck, Understanding the Effect of Random Reward Mechanisms in Video Games on Player Experience. Here are the contents. I will start off with the introduction, which dives into how this paper came about and why it is relevant. Then I will go over related works and go straight into the goal of this paper. The methodology has two methods, which I will explain and present the results right away before moving on to the next method. And finally, the conclusion. The people play games for a lot of different factors, but the common factor in all of these games is that the player expects to be rewarded when they do well. Players feel a sense of achievement or happiness when they receive such rewards. Rewards come in a variety of different ways, as you can see below. A high score, elo, items, or achievements. But what if these rewards aren't that great? For example, the picture on the right, you can see even after hours of exploring and looting, they get nothing but garbage. On the other hand, the picture on the left shows the absurdity of receiving an overpowered weapon at level 1. These rewards fall into what we call a probabilistic spectrum. To illustrate this in practice, I have put three examples of game scenarios. Number one, killing a mob and receiving random loot. Number two, getting a random gun from a box. And number three, opening a pack of virtual trading cards. The common factor in all these scenarios is that the player receives a reward that is quote unquote random. We define this trigger condition as RRM, or random reward mechanism, with which is a trigger condition that leads to the probabilistic procedure that generates the received rewards. RRMs can take multiple forms, like you saw in the previous slide, and the perception of these RRMs takes on drastically different forms as well. For example, some paid RMs have garnered controversy due to its similarities to gambling. For example, like Genshin Impact and Overwatch loot boxes. However, not all RMs are perceived negatively, like the League of Legends loot boxes that you can purchase in the store. So what prompts all these negative perceptions? To find the answer, the authors cite related studies done on the negative studies of RNNs in social aspects, while other studies have tried to create classification systems for paid RRMs to understand the difference between these paid RRMs. However, all these studies only try to classify objectively on the mechanics, while this paper emphasizes that we need to focus more on the player experience aspects. What separates RRMs with other reward systems is their unpredictability. Unpredictability is fundamental to games, and many past studies have shown that it is a positive factor in games. But how does unpredictability affect the player's emotion and their view on the game? This leads us into the question and goals the authors wish to achieve in this paper. First, what are the types of RMs that exist? They answer this by creating a classification system. Second, how do they perceive and engage with RMs? They make an empirical findings based on interviews with players. And finally, how can we design better RRM systems? They suggest three methodological considerations and improvements. Now, to reach all these goals, they use two methods. The first is used to create the classification system, while the second method is used for questions 2 and 3. The first of two methods they use is video analysis. The video analysis is done by taking recordings of 35 RRMs from 28 games and changing them into textual representations. The criteria for choosing the RMs was high number of active daily players, high revenue numbers, and high number of peak player count. The authors state that while these criteria have nothing to do with RMs, it nevertheless allows them to get a more diverse and generalized data. They also note that while they had more RMs, the additional RMs only minimally increased the variation and wasn't that significant in the findings. With these textual representations, they do a deductive thematic analysis focused solely on objective and technical characteristics of the rewards, since that will give them more reliable results. With that, they were able to classify the RMs with these 9 criteria, which can be further categorized into 3 main criteria. Reward characteristics within the context of the overall game, integration of RM system within the game, and factors involved in the presentation of the reward. The second method they used were interviews with actual video game players. The mean age was 23.6 years old and had 9 males and 5 females. The participants discussed RMs they were personally familiar with, but the authors made sure to also discuss 7 representative RMs to diversify and unify the whole experience. They discussed about what they liked and disliked about each implementation. What was the most impactful part? What motivated them to achieve these RMs and etc. These interviews were analyzed through thematic analysis again, and these are their findings. The first finding is the uniqueness of RMs in games. The randomness from RMs provide a uniqueness for each run and creates individualism for each round, quoting, "The fun comes from the fact that the playthrough is fresh and unique, and if everything is deterministic, it's not very exciting anymore. Introducing some randomness creates flexibility and introduces diversity into the game." These findings echo other past researches done in this area. The next finding is the trade-off between luck and skill. Participants have voiced that with the increase or decrease in the dependency on luck will contrast the reliance on skill. And while this lets the majority of the community who are less skilled to feel less frustrated when playing with better skilled players, the skilled players feel dissatisfied with the matchup and in turn feel less motivated to hone their skills. It also introduces adaptability as an additional skill, which means you have to adapt to the rewards that you are given. For example, if you were to receive a sniper on your run, you are suggested to create your run on a more long-range playstyle. While if you receive a shotgun, you are suggested to play more short range. The third finding is simulated determinism. Sometimes the players feel that they must get a certain reward from an RRM system. The players expect a good drop the more time and effort they spend in getting that drop. Quoting, "You're just hoping the items drop. You're sort of wondering, am I just unlucky or am I spending more time than I really should be?" This can quickly bore the player if all you are doing is grinding to get to an end goal. A bigger problem is if the reward is correlated with financial expenditures. Quoting, "I go in with the expectation that I will pull this character and have a budget for my pulls." This can lead to players spending more and more money if they don't get a specific reward they were hoping to get. In either case, the players are constantly triggering the RMs and basically ruining their experience of uniqueness and individualism from the previous finding, and this is what we call simulated determinism. Their final finding is the presentation of the rewards. On the screen, you can see the loot box opening sequence from Overwatch. On this video, factors of juiciness, which is a term referring to the audio and visual embellishments, play a major factor in player enjoyment and engagement. In this specific video, factors of juiciness arise from the exploding animations, colors, and various sound effects that occur. The level of visually and audioly stimulation reward presentations was ideal when the trade-off was the same to the resource expenditure to receive the reward. The authors also state that having a separate menu for the game might halt the flow of the game. However, by doing so, you can emphasize the rewards and increase the anticipation of receiving a great reward. But due to the nature of RRMs, even with high levels of expenditure, the player's rewards might be relatively worse. This is what they call rarity. The term rarity is a relative value and the scarcity of a reward. Participants stated that they showed more emotions when receiving higher rarities but was indifferent to common rarities. While it is frustrating when receiving low rarity loot, the participants still preferred the system of frequent misses and infrequent hits. The players are further supported when they get a high rarity, which follows up with more animations and better sounds. Quoting, it shows appreciation from developers when you get rewards, so the animation is in a sense a reward for progression. Overall, the authors give three suggestions for what developers should consider when creating an RRM. The first is, should the game even have a RRM instead of deterministic rewards? What are the trade-offs? And if we do put RMs, how frequent should the hits be relative to the affordance of the reward? And if RMs are put in place, how would the players view the luck versus skill? If the items affect the player's skill too much, the players who are skilled will feel unmotivated to do better and will likely have less retainment stat of players. This is especially important for games that are designed to be competitive. And finally, how will the rewards be presented to the players? If the players spend a lot of expenditure to get the rewards, the presentation should be just as impactful so that the players feel like they actually achieve something great and evoke the juiciness levels. Thank you for listening, and this is the end of my presentation.